In spring 2026, President Trump posted a map of the Middle East to social media. He drew a circle around the waterway separating Iran and Oman and labeled it New U.S. Territory. This proclamation matched the administration's official stance. U.S. officials claimed to have decimated Iranian naval targets and established a blockade so effective that Washington now exerted total control over the waterway. Claiming control of the Strait of Hormuz means policing a hostile bottleneck just 21 miles wide. This narrow gap matters. 20% of the world's seaborne oil squeezes through it, alongside 20% of its liquefied natural gas and a third of globally traded fertilizers. The political messaging out of Washington projected total security, but the empirical data coming from maritime tracking satellites told a different story. Commercial transit through the area had quietly dropped to near 3-month lows. Before the conflict began, roughly 130 ships navigated the strait every day. By May, that number had collapsed by 90%, leaving a 5-day average of just 13 vessels trickling through the corridor. The logistical backlog paralyzed the global shipping industry. Approximately 2,000 ships dropped anchor in the Persian Gulf, leaving 20,000 commercial mariners stranded in a high-risk conflict zone. Dominating a choke point on a military map is a different task than securing it for global commerce. Despite the massive U.S. naval presence, commercial shipping traffic effectively stopped, leaving the world's most vital energy corridor completely empty. What emerged instead was a dual blockade. On one side, the U.S. Navy successfully intercepted tankers bound for Iranian ports, while the Treasury Department launched its economic theory campaign, targeting everything from front companies and exchange houses to cash transfers and ship registries. Tehran responded by launching a blockade of its own. Even with its conventional navy in ruins from U.S. airstrikes, Iranian forces proved they could still dictate who entered the Gulf. They did this by pivoting entirely to asymmetric warfare. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps deployed cheap sea drones, laid hidden naval mines, and harassed tankers with swarms of agile, low-tech speedboats. Washington had overwhelming conventional military superiority, but standard naval destroyers are not designed to easily sweep an ocean filled with thousands of cheap, hidden, and highly mobile threats. To understand why commercial shipping actually stopped, we have to look past the military hardware and look at the financial mechanics. Before a captain sails into a conflict zone, the vessel's owners must purchase war risk insurance. This line chart shows how the market priced the threat of Iranian asymmetric warfare. Historically, insurers in London charged a premium of about 0.125% of a ship's total value to transit the Gulf. Following the attacks, that premium spiked to 7.5%. For a massive crude oil tanker, that percentage hike translates to an extra $15 million in insurance costs for a single transit. Global trade is not dictated by the presence of battleships, it is dictated by actuaries. The U.S. flatly rejected a multilateral solution. Instead, Washington opted to operate a highly secretive, heavily militarized shipping corridor hugging the Omani coast, moving a tiny fraction of normal traffic under the cover of darkness. That unilateral approach alienated Gulf nations. For countries bordering the waterway, commercial stability and open sea lanes are existential priorities, and they heavily outweigh Washington's strategic desire to isolate Tehran. The resulting standoff became a grueling test of endurance. Inside Iran, the U.S. economic campaign pushed annual inflation to 66%, while the cost of basic food items spiked by 128%. Yet Iranian leadership proved entirely willing to absorb that domestic pain. From their perspective, maintaining a chokehold on the strait via speedboats and drones provides their ultimate geopolitical leverage against a superior military force. It created a perfect stalemate. Washington had the capacity to inflict endless economic pain on Iran, but Tehran retained the capacity to inflict endless logistical paralysis on the global market. For decades, the globalized economy rested on a single foundational assumption: that the United States Navy could unconditionally guarantee the safety and openness of global sea lanes. The crisis of 2026 provided a harsh lesson in modern warfare. A dominant conventional military can effectively enforce a blockade against an adversary, but it cannot force global commerce to return to normal when faced with cheap, asymmetric drone and mine warfare. Because of that vulnerability, the Strait of Hormuz and its maritime networks will carry a permanent risk premium for the rest of our lifetimes.